Welcome back, and what a delight to have back with us. Oh, yes, Megan Barth. She is the founder and the proprietor of ReaganBaby.com, and just love talking to her and finding out her response to the RNC convention. And in particular, last night, Donald gave his speech. He is now officially the Republican nominee for President of the United States, and a lot of people say last night's speech was a home run. So anyway, Megan, how are you? You are smiling and happy. You must be pretty charged from last night, huh?
I'm charged from last night and I had a good cup of coffee. Started my day early about a few hours ago. But I'll tell you what, I went to a View watching party last night and was co-host of it. And one thing I noticed in particular, which I've noticed throughout this election season, is the amount of women that literally get out of their seats and cheer. And they cheer for Trump more than they cheered for Ivanka. And when they cheered, it was due and when he said it's about safety and security. Every single time he talked about making America safe again or bringing back law and order to our streets, as well as on the global scale in fighting ISIS, women in the crowd jumped to their feet and started clapping. And this is the defining moment of Trump's election campaign, is that the left wants to paint him into a corner of being a sexist or a misogynist. And as I have traveled around this election season covering either his rallies or just general news, I always see more women in the crowd on a 2-to-1 scale, and I see an energy in the women's electorate that I just have not seen with past Republican candidates.
You know, I have to say, he's tapped into the number one emotion for women. That's safety and law and order and security. I mean, those issues pull very strongly with women. And you know that Hillary's message is going to be equality. But I think Ivanka kind of stole that away from her last night, quoting her dad's number of women that he's hiring, how much he pays them. But nonetheless, I think you make a good observation that the women are now coming on board. Let me ask you this. Let's go back to his wife's speech. Do you think that hurt him? What happened there?
No, actually, I think it helped because the press grabbed onto that like a pit bull and covered it for 3 days. Number one, she didn't write the speech. We found out a couple days later that she did have a writer who admitted her fault. Number two, she's a woman that speaks 6 or 5 languages, and so English is her 5th language. So I think that her class and her presence and her command of that stage actually helped her. We have to understand something, and as we watch the reaction to either Melania or Donald Trump, is that the press is never, ever going to allow the Republicans a fair shake. They aren't going to cover a Republican nominee or his family or his platform with any ounce of objectivity. Because what we've seen over the last 7.5 years, and even prior to that with the Clintons in the White House, the press is wedded to the left. They are the water carriers of the left. And that's one of the reasons why I started ReaganBaby.com. I was not seeing the truth. I was not seeing an objective press. I was seeing a press that was more of a propaganda machine that was putting out headlines, creating a narrative that was so devoid of the truth that I felt I needed to do something. But then again, as I watched the press reaction to Melania's speech, it confirms my suspicions.
Right. All right. He starts off his speech last night with a fact, and it is the fact that more people voted in the Republican primary for him than the history of president candidates. 23% fewer showed up on the Democratic side. There is a movement here. So that seems to be moving forward as a result of last night's speech. In fact, you know, it was interesting. I watched some of the commentary last night. Never Trumpers were converted last night. So do you think the speech was successful?
Yeah, I think it was a home run. It was a red meat, raw speech. It spoke to the issues that this election will be about, which are 2 main issues. We aren't going to be talking about transgender bathrooms, even though CNN last night wanted to talk about transgender bathrooms for about 10 minutes. The fact is, this election is going to come down to safety, security, and prosperity. And Trump said it best: we cannot have prosperity without safety and security. And the facts that he hit on, as far as whether it comes from demographics related to the African American community, whether it comes to women in general, whether it comes to the LGBT community, he did not pit these groups against one another. He basically said these groups are going to be more prosperous when we provide a safe and secure environment and remove the regulations as well as the economic and foreign policies related to the Democrats and the Barack Obama administration from this government, reduce the government, and allow freedom to prosper. And I think that this red meat speech that he gave last night, which was 74 minutes, I believe, was needed in order to unify the base, bring in some of those within the Never Trump movement, so he can demonstrate leadership, conservative principles that they might have been suspect of, as well as grow the tent. You know, I can't remember in modern times when a Republican candidate stood up on behalf of the LGBT community. I think this was an important step in showing that we do have a libertarian streak, as we always have had within the Republican base. Peter Thiel said that best. And he said Peter Thiel said, all these distractions, these cultural distractions, are nothing but distractions. They mask the economic reality.
All right, let me go to, I'm going to leave Ted Cruz off the list for a moment, but the Kasichs, the Romneys, and the Bushes that didn't attend, the Kasich thing to me is very disappointing. And Trump has to pick up Ohio and Florida. Political wisdom tells you that. By Kasich not being there, you think it hurts?
You know, I think maybe, and hopefully, Kasich is an observer of politics as long as he has been in politics. I know he's an observer. This is movement politics 101, and we've talked about this before, Perry, very early on in this election season. We saw two movements in this country, one behind a socialist named Bernie Sanders and the other behind a capitalist named Donald Trump. And what we are up against is the institutional left, the violent left. We see this. We are attacked constantly. We are the ones that are called racists. We are the ones that are called homophobes. We are the ones that are called misogynists. Yet, when you look at their platform and you look at the leaders, whether it be Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama, we know who they are. We know that their policies are destructive on the very people they claim to protect. We know that they are disciples of Alinsky, who dedicated his book to Lucifer. And I was so thankful that Dr. Ben Carson had mentioned that. And I'm thankful that the left went nuts over it, because as Donald Trump said, he promised us the truth. And the truth is not always easy to hear, and it's not nice to hear. But with the truth, you can live on your feet instead of die on your knees in deception. And what has happened to the Democrat Party is that they have gone so far left because of Bernie Sanders and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, because that's who they are. They have a totalitarian stance, and yet they call us totalitarians. And that's what you call psychological projection. Everything that they are, they blame us to be. And so I hope that John Kasich understands who we are up against, because this is, as Mike Pence said, our time for choosing. It is one of the most important elections that we have, because we have to stop the progressive abyss that the Democrats have put us in and have promised to continue.
Some have said there's still time for Donald Trump personally to reach out to Governor Kasich between now and November. And I would assume, given what I heard in the temperament by which it was delivered, he may do that.
Yeah, you know, I've never really really saw Donald Trump as someone that was not a negotiating type of person. I've never believed him to be someone that would not, try to negotiate a deal across the table, right? And this is a negotiation. This is one of the largest negotiations he's ever had in his office. He's negotiating with the American people. He's negotiating with the Republican Party. He is definitely a different type of Republican that we've seen, but it's refreshing because we actually have somebody that could win. When you look at Mitt Romney, when you look at John McCain, when you look at Bob Dole, they have all rolled over. They didn't attack the left. They didn't serve up the type of speech that Donald Trump is capable and delivered last night. He knows who the enemy is. He took the war and put it into their front yard instead of being on the defensive or being cowering from the truth. He's willing to speak the truth and truth to power, whereby the last three candidates have not. And so when Mitt Romney sits out and when Jeb Bush sits out, they lost. They
lost significant. Is the Republican Party now forever changed?
You know, I happen to think that it's changed, but yet is kind of going back to what it was. Because the Republican Party since Reagan, I have not recognized. I did not necessarily, I like George Bush, but I didn't recognize his conservative values when it came to expanding government. That certainly isn't a conservative principle to me. I didn't recognize their, I just didn't recognize their policies. So when you talk about limited government, when you talk about a free people, when you talk about the spirit of the individual and the empowerment of that, when you talk about the Constitution, that is the Republican Party that I understand and know. That's why I'm Reagan, baby. Reagan had a strong conservative leaning. He was a wonderful orator, but he had a huge tent. Why? Because he spoke the truth. And he spoke to the American people not as silos of classes of people or victims. He didn't speak to women because we're a special interest group. He didn't speak to African Americans because they're a special interest group. He spoke to a unified America as one, and he didn't change his message. And that's similar to Trump. Trump speaks in broader strokes, much like Reagan. And he doesn't speak on behalf of pitting people together, whether it be the evangelicals against the libertarians or the libertarians against the conservatives. He's talking about uniting this country behind the Constitution, behind a more limited government, and reducing the fraud and the waste that has been rampant since Reagan. We cannot say that the party of Reagan survived after Reagan.
Boy, that is a great observation. All right, let me take a quick break here. We'll be right back. We're talking to our good friend Megan Barr. She heads up ReaganBaby.com. It says it all. Just go there. You are going to find a lot of information, support what she does, and get on the bandwagon. We'll be right back.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at thedove.us.
Okay, we're back, and always a delight to have with us today our good friend Megan Barr. She's the founder and the proprietor of ReaganBaby.com. And when you go to the website, it's just the place to go. It's got so much great information and resources there for you, and with no twist and burn, it's just the truth. ReaganBaby.com. All right, Megan, we talked about this a little bit the last couple of days here on the morning show, and boy, did I get a lot of response to it on both sides, and that is the Ted Cruz speech. It just appears to me he would have been better off not to have spoken. Just stayed away from the convention. But since he stepped in it, there are those who support him, and there are those who said, as Charles Krauthammer said, he just gave the longest political suicide speech ever.
That was a great comment. Yeah, I really don't understand Ted Cruz, and I really don't understand his followers that much. As a Christian, number one, I was taught to forgive. And when Donald Trump and the RNC offer you a primetime spot as an olive branch and allow you to speak for 25 minutes instead of 10, I would say that was a pretty good gesture of goodwill. Now, I don't know if Ted Cruz is waiting for a formal apology. It seems like he is. But Ted Cruz did make a pledge. And as a Christian, I'm always taught you uphold, your values, and you speak the truth, and you commit. When you commit, you follow through. And Ted Cruz is just unable to do that. That is an issue he is going to have to live with, and whether or not that really hurts him in Texas remains to be seen. But I honestly think, Barry, that Jesus could have been on the ticket alone or as vice president material for Donald Trump, and they still wouldn't vote for Donald Trump or Jesus because he's not Ted Cruz.
Well, you kind of speak my sentiments, and I took some flack for this, but my thought was this, because it's very personal with Ted, no question about it, and I watched his speech back to the Texas delegation and explaining why he did what he did. But where was the grace? Where was the forgiveness? Where was the Christian leadership in this? And I'm just disappointed. What an opportunity to display the Christian virtues on how you would conduct yourself in front of national television. Instead, he epitomized the criticism that we all get.
Yeah, he certainly did, didn't he? He dug his heels in and was very stubborn and what I would call self-righteous and self-centered. And that, I guess, works for some people. But again, that doesn't fit within how I was taught when I was taught the gospel. I follow the golden rule. And, politics does not follow the golden rule. Politics is one of the dirtiest, nastiest businesses out there. I think it was Reagan that said it's the second oldest profession, but more like the first. You look at Ted Cruz's demeanor and you wonder, how would he have survived a Clinton assault? How would he have survived this general election if he were our nominee? The Clintons are one of the dirtiest in history when it comes to being lowball, as far as insults and finding dirt on candidates and using it to their benefit. They're doing it with Trump. They're defaming and disgracing his whole entire family, or at least trying to. So tell me, how would Cruz, if he can't stand a couple of insults thrown his way, either at his father, and it really wasn't an insult, it was a question, but then his campaign puts out an awful picture of Melania, and Trump strikes back, and all of a sudden he has a problem with that.
All right, so last night during the speech, by the way, just on that note, I find it interesting that Donald Trump's response to Cruz's speech was more Christian than Cruz. I mean, he said, no big deal, let's move on. So I thought that was interesting. But last night during the speech, Megan, when he came to mentioning the evangelical support, the whole tone of the speech changed. The volume changed. The tenure changed. I mean, he was genuinely moved there for a moment. There was a slight moment in his delivery that you can tell that it got to him. And he made a comment that, to me, something is happening, and that is, thank you for your support. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, and I'm not sure if I really deserve it. What'd you think?
I loved it. It showed true humility. And a good leader has humility. A good leader recognizes his weakness and tries to perfect his weaknesses, meaning that he tries to fix them. And so I thought that that humility was really what was needed. And I think that when you have someone like Jerry Falwell Jr. get behind you, and basically the evangelical community get behind you, it says a lot. Because as we were both taught, it's basically character and integrity is defined by what you do when people aren't watching. And Donald Trump has been exemplary in that matter with the people of New York. And there are tons of stories where he has come to various strangers' aids. And whether or not he does that within the four walls of the church should not define the type of man that he is. His actions outside of the church actually should define what type of man or a Christian or woman that you are. And so I think that his support with the evangelicals will get stronger. I'm not sure about the Ted Cruz base because, like I said, I can't figure them out for the life of me. But especially when he talks to how churches are being, under that rule, I think it was LBJ that passed that law, that he would take a serious look at that. And he'd want to change it. And I think that's an excellent step in the right direction as far as protecting religious liberty in this country, because it is under assault.
Well, and let's not forget, he picked Governor Mike Pence to be his running mate, and his opening line is, "I'm a Christian, I'm a conservative, and I'm a Republican in that order."
Absolutely.
So that's pretty staying. So I can't help but think it's given me another way to pray for Trump, and I'm encouraged. All right, now turn your hat around. Next week, there you go. Next week, what do you think we're in for?
Oh God, demagoguery, psychological political projection, meaning that they are going to. It's interesting, Perry, when you watch the left. Okay, everything that they accuse us of, they are, and then they say, "Oh, we'll tone down the negativity. The Republicans are so negative. They're hateful." Next week is going to be a hate fest. They will call us every name in the book. They will accuse us of being Hitler or Mussolini. And I'd rather read the transcripts than watch it, because I want to keep some sense of sanity.
Well, one thing that came out of this convention, if you took all of the Hillary scandals, and especially her tenure as Secretary of State, this convention cleared out the fact that she cannot claim any successful ground in that position. So how does she defend it?
Well, she doesn't defend it. She just deflects from it, and that's what her whole campaign has been about. It's been about trashing the Republicans so she can ignore all of the scandals that have plagued her Secretary of State, as well as this administration, since day one. She could ignore the spread of ISIS. She can ignore the anarchy in our streets, because she wants the anarchy in our streets. Like I said, she's a prodigy of Alinsky, whereby Alinsky, in order to create institutional change, you need to basically create chaos through social uprisings. This is who Hillary Clinton is. She is the original community organizer. So she is going to deflect everything that she is and basically try to pass it off on Donald Trump or the Republican Party. She's going to try to say that she's a champion of women's equality. But here's the problem, Perry. The press isn't going to hold her to it. The press isn't going to question her. I will guarantee you that the press narrative that comes out of the DNC is going to be, oh, it's a love fest. Everyone's getting along. She has the best plan ever, Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is the leader that we need. This is what the press is going to say. And they are going to gloss over or completely just black out really who she is and what the Democrat platform is about. Let's not forget, the Democrat platform now includes Black Lives Matter, which is a hate group associated with the new Black Panthers and Nation of Islam. They are a cover for racial divide. They are racial separatists, Black nationalists. They want nothing to do with racial harmony. They also have added in their Democrat platform abortion on demand. They want to eliminate the Hyde Amendment. So I'm waiting for someone from the press to ask Hillary Clinton one simple question. If a woman is 8 months pregnant, is it okay to get an abortion? Because according to Abortion on Demand, that 8-month pregnant woman, has every right to.
Right. Does she put Bill up on the stage?
If he can make it. I mean, have you seen the guy lately? He does not look healthy, and neither does she. I think she has to, because she doesn't have the charm that Bill has. and it's kind of getting a little bit old. I mean, it's wearing off in his older age, but she runs the risk because he is the one that incarcerated more blacks than any other president because of his policies, and he's the one that passed NAFTA, which crushed our American economy.
Well, Megan, as always, you're a delight and an inspiration. I want to say thank you for your time. We value it greatly, and I think you are spot on. I think that the safety, security, and law and order issue is the issue of the day, not only with women, I think with Americans across the board, and he has certainly positioned himself well. He said, me and Mike Pence, we are the law and order candidates. I mean, she can't claim that one.
Make America safe again.
There you go. Thanks. Have a great time. Looking forward to talking to you again. And by the way, go to ReaganBaby.com. That's the place. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you, Perry.
All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.